Welcome back into the Irish Recruiting Podcast. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst and Notre Dame fan. Thank you for tuning in to learn more about the Irish after a very disappointing 0-2 start. We're going to break it down on the Chris Ash front because that's what most people want to discuss. I have some strong takes on that, but you're going to learn something about how it works publicly as opposed to behind the scenes. We're also going to discuss the offensive line, how it coincides with CJ Carr. I have some actually very positive news on that front, which, to be honest, I'm a little surprised by myself, but that's why you do the details and you don't just do a reaction when you do analysis. You've got to really dig in. I did that for you, and we'll be talking about that. And we're going to talk about the defensive numbers. Why are certain things happening? I'm going to give my take on it, but this is going to be a long study over several weeks. This will be the first of many, I can assure you, looks at the secondary and just the defense overall, what's happening. It's not just Chris Ash here. There are a lot of things going on. So let's dig into the Chris Ash discussion. And if you take nothing else from this podcast, take the following. What is said publicly, what is said behind the scenes, and what's really happening are all intertwined in different ways at every program. I know firsthand from speaking to college coaches over the times, things were going wrong, or especially high school coaches, 7-on-7 coaches. There's things you just can't say publicly. After the game, Marcus Freeman made this statement when Pete Sampson asked him. Pete's a good guy. I've known him a long time. He just asked him, hey, what about the play calling defensively, blah, blah, blah. He just wanted to get a statement on the record so he could write an article. He already knew Marcus wasn't going to say anything. But in today's press conference, the statement, are we asking them to do too much? I took that away from today's Marcus Freeman press conference as the most important detail. Number one, not a doubt about it. And here's why. He knows that they're swimming, AKA paralysis by analysis. No coach wants to hear that because they want to give them the most complicated thing they can, because if they pick it up, the other team's in a lot of trouble. It's not working. So this is where the stubbornness part comes in. Chris Ash, I know he has a lot of knowledge. Urban Meyer, somebody I knew when he was back at Notre Dame back in the day, and he wouldn't have hired Ash. They won a national title with Ash as his coordinator. But for whatever reason, it's not working. Now, they do have one advantage. They play Purdue this weekend, and that's a rebuilding program. They should win, but there can be some ugly moments. Purdue held their own for a while against USC. They were bad. They are definitely a lot better than they were last year. That's the understatement of millennium. So Notre Dame has to improve tackling, some basic things, physicality, knowing your run gap fits, some basic things. All those can be shored up a little bit. But it's really about the secondary just not knowing where they're supposed to be. And then we'll get in a little bit to the defensive line, but it's going to be more about the secondary today. The defensive line has issues too. They just look confused. And there were times you could tell they had no idea what they were doing. Now, Marcus just gave the public answer. Again, are we asking them to do too much? He's asking you to read between the lines. There's something wrong. We haven't figured this out, but why aren't they picking this up? And he even brought up, hey, are we going to have to coach it differently? Or are we going to do? He didn't want to say we have to change the scheme. And I'll just go ahead and make this statement once, about 5 times, and we're going to say it today. Coaches are the most stubborn human beings on planet Earth. There isn't even a second place. They hate change, especially after the season started. But they're probably going to have to do it. And that means a very slow and awkward change over this season. And it is what it is, especially with your schedule more front-loaded. Like the NC State game is infinitely harder than I thought it was going to be. I kind of had that as a pick'em right now. Like that CJ Bailey kid I covered in high school, he can spin it, and they have an NFL running back. Not the greatest defense, but if Notre Dame screws around, it can be just like the A&M game. So these busts in the secondary, they may have to just play it. I'm not saying they're going to do it on the same level in terms of execution, but the defense that you see at Iowa, I reference it a lot on every podcast that I go on and that I do. It's the most sound defense in the country over the last 20 years. And there's no second place for that either. They may have to just run the same thing. The other team know it. But again, coaches hate change, and Notre Dame wants to change constantly. Will they do that if the players really continue to struggle after the Purdue game? That's what I want to see between now and the end of this upcoming game. If they struggle with coverage busts and guys being out of position, again, there's no nice way to say it. Either you change or it's on the head coach at that point. He's acknowledged it, not directly, but you can read between the lines. So the whole Chris Ash thing with bringing in the new system, it's just not working. We all know that he's probably not the answer, but in the middle of there's not much that he can do, again, publicly. For those you're saying, well, Brian, he can take over play calling. He can't. Notice I keep saying the word publicly. Let me give you an example. I live in Auburn, Alabama, and I cover Auburn a little bit with some of my buddies here, and their coaching staff is very accommodating. It's great. All kinds of access, and they've been really nice to everybody. I know from just being around here that what they say about how they do play calling and what actually happens in games have nothing to do with one another. Zero. The head coach is calling the plays. But there's a coordinator for third down plays, and there's a coordinator for first down, blah, blah, blah. The only guy calling plays is Hugh Freeze. Period. And I guarantee he would lie on just about anything other than the Bible that that's not happening. This is from the quarterback from last year. Like, it's just the way it is. Hugh's calling the plays. And I guarantee you that's the way it works at a lot of programs. It's publicity stunt. It's a way to get coaches more money. He brought in a coach from Ole Miss a couple of years ago. Really good recruiter, good guy, respected in the industry. They're looking to get him more money. They gave him a bigger title, said he was going to call some plays, blah, blah, blah. He's not. Well, that doesn't mean that Chris Ash has to get back any of the money he's getting from Notre Dame, but it also doesn't mean he's got to call the plays anymore. The problem here, while Freeman is a DC by trade, just kind of like Hugh Freeze is an OC by trade at Auburn, he has a different idea of what he wanted to do with this season, how he was going to handle it, and Ash is an experienced coach. That's a lot of extra stuff on his plate. So how does he handle that? I have no idea. But this I do know. Freeman makes millions and millions and millions of dollars. Figure it out. If Ash is calling plays after the Purdue game and there's still all these holes in the defense where it's blatantly obvious, even to the most novice fan in the stands, that the players don't know what's going on, then it's on you. There is, again, I understand you're not going to throw your coach under the bus publicly, but you got to take away his play calling duties. Purdue, without a doubt, is the end of Chris Ash's opportunity to be the only play caller, to be the primary play caller at most. I would take him away now. I don't think Freeman will do that. I'm guessing. But again, what he says publicly, you can take that and throw it into the Atlantic Ocean. It means zero. Coaches are not going to throw that guy under the bus because it's somebody he hired. It's going to be respectful. And if he did throw him under the bus and got rid of him at the end of the year, you know who wouldn't be very happy with that besides Chris Ash? All the coaches around the country wondering, if I go work for Freeman, how's this going to work? You can't do it. So those of you that want their pound of flesh in public, you're never going to get it. Now, as for how it's going to work this week, I don't know, because what I'm about to show you in terms of defensive grades, if you're not sitting down, I advise you do. I have my Pro Football Focus grades sitting up here. Oof, boy, I got them set for coverage. This is just for the A&M game. Make sure, please, I will give you a few seconds. Sit down, because this is grotesque. And I'm not saying PFF is perfect. It's impossible to grade everything the way you'd really want. But at the same time, this is brutal, y'all. This is absolutely brutal. So here we go. Again, I have it set on coverage. Leonard Moore is a dude. We knew that. He's a first-round pick. He'd be a first-round pick after this year. He's just not eligible for the draft, fortunately for Notre Dame. That being the case, if you look at the grades, there's only one other guy in coverage. It's the one on the far right there, 70.2. That's Luke Talich. Everybody else is under 70, so there's no other good. And I'm not saying they didn't play solid, and they're obviously going against good, skilled athletes at A&M and all that. That is absolutely the case. But where are the corners at? You got to go way down to start seeing the corner. Where am I at here? Defensive tackle, linebacker, safety. Next corner is Zachary. He only played a couple of snaps. That's because we had an injury. Next corner, that's Hobbs. He got smoked. He is not ready. Notre Dame's and we'll have another discussion about this later. They don't have a nickel corner right now. This I will blame Freeman and everybody on the defensive staff wholeheartedly. They thought he was a guy. I was told he was a guy in spring. I was told he was a guy in summer. I was told he was a guy in fall camp. They failed there. That's not negotiable. Fail. However, you got to keep getting him better and just improving the process. And it's like Freeman said again, are we asking them to do too much? I don't know. But I think Hobbs is a guy that they recruited to play man, and they're playing zone. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Next up, Christian Gray. Obviously, absolutely horrid 2 points. Number one, he's in his own head again. And number two, he's not healthy. That tackle attempt that he had on the Mario Craver play that went for like 80 yards or whatever, you could tell he didn't want his shoulder having anything to do with tackling. Either they got to take Christian Gray out of the lineup for a few weeks, or he's got to get over it. There cannot be a gray area. No offense, no pun intended. Christian either has to play full or just come off the field. I think they're worried they don't have another corner that's ready to do the defense that they want. And again, I'm going to say it, are we asking them to do too much? I'm not talking about the physical stuff. What they're asking them to do in a lot of ways is actually easier physically. Man defense and chasing guys everywhere is hard as all get out, but they've recruited elite man-to-man corners. What kind of defense are they playing? Zone. It's not working. So either they, again, are we asking them to do too much? Either they go back to more man, or they're not going to be able to substitute, because I don't think this defense is way harder for a young guy to learn than it would be the defense that like Mickens and Al Golden like and preferred the last couple of years. It's more man. There's some blitz and stuff, but they don't blitz a lot from the defensive secondary. They have to play more man. That part, I don't care who's calling it, especially like Zachary and Dallas Golden. Like, that's a kid I know. You have to play man. Those kids are not ready for this defense. And if I'm right, and Gray is probably a guy that needs to sit, they're in a world of hurt in terms of what they're going to do, because Zachary's not ready. Dallas Golden didn't even play. And I know him well. That's a smart kid, but he's a true freshman. It's too much on their plate above the shoulders, paralysis by analysis. They're going to have to either really eat it and just get smoked against a team like Purdue on the secondary, which it can happen, or they're going to change some. That I am very steadfast. But continuing on after my diatribe, look at this down through the list here. Tay Johnson, he got beat a few times, but I thought he played pretty well in terms of his aggressiveness. I thought this grade was a little low, 54 point something or other, but I think he's got a lot of upside. We'll see. But Stroman, obviously, he was a part of the play where he came down on the Mario Craver play and he got smoked, and his tackling is not very good right now. That's putting it mildly. And you just kind of go through, and like all the DBs are in like the 40s and 50s, except for, again, just a couple. The secondary is swimming. Marcus Freeman threw an olive branch towards Notre Dame here, the media that is, and he made it clear that he understands what's going on. But they're into the season. You can't just change your defense wholeheartedly. They're in a bad spot. You say, well, Brian, they can just play man. They still practice a ton of different things with those blitz packages to make that right. That's an entire year doing that, and it's nonstop. You can't just do that in the week against Purdue and it work. So what I'm saying before you even ask, yes, there is no fix. It is incremental. It'll be very, very slow. So tackling and just not getting beat over the top, I think, is what they're going to work on the most. And they'll play more man to a certain degree. But if Christian's banged up, even that's not going to go great. I mean, that's an NFL corner when he's not in his own head and he's not hurt. But right now, it's obvious, at least to me, that he's not in a good spot. And I don't know what Marcus is going to do with the play calling. That's going to be rough. As I noted earlier, he has to take over some of it. I just don't know how you do that on game day when you're the head coach. It's difficult to just not have all your preparations for that in the summer and then in early fall camp. Then also, okay, this is bombed, which, again, he's not going to admit that publicly. How do you do that on game day? That's a lot of stuff. And how does that screw up the continuity? Because you're not going to just get rid of Ash 2 games in. It's just not going to happen. I know, again, everybody wants their pound of flesh. It's not going to happen. So they have to find a way to make the communication work better. And probably, conservatively, in my opinion, reduce the playbook of what they're asking them to do by 50% or more. I mean, it just is what it is. Iowa runs about 10 plays. It works for them. Everybody's got their own philosophy. They play cover 2 zone. occasionally play a little man under or something like that, mix it up, a few different fire zone kind of things, really generic, but they tackle well. Nobody gets over the top. That would be the easiest way to go right now. Maybe you play some cover 2, man under, or something like that, because I just don't think they have the ability to run all this stuff, because it looks like a Chinese fire drill or the old proverbial chicken run around with his head cut off. That's what this defense looks like. So I don't think Ash is going anywhere until after the season. I think Freeman will give him every chance under the sun to do well. I don't think it'll work. And I think behind the scenes, he is going to absolutely unequivocally look around, and he will deny it to the umpteenth degree that he's doing so. That's just how coaching works. You're not going to get a pound of flesh as fans, which I would like some too, but it's not going to happen. Ash is not the answer. I know it. You know it. How it happens, though, and what they do in the intermediate next week or so is all you really need to worry about. Of course, the only game you can play is Purdue anyhow. This is going to be ugly, in my opinion, and I expect Purdue to have some big plays. Gray's not healthy. Pass rush stinks. I'll talk about that in a second. And you've got young guys that aren't ready for this zone defense that they're running. That's obvious. And they haven't practiced the defense that Golden had all the way from the spring forward. So none of those young players know it, and Gray probably needs to rest. There is no selection on the drop-down box that is good. They're all awful. That's just the way it is. Now, while I'm thinking of it, let's just talk about Notre Dame's defense in terms of pass rush for a second. I might as well pull that back up. I mean, it's pathetic. This is a little bit different. You can blame coaching to a certain degree, absolutely, because that's part of the deal. But the only guys that did good pass rushing were Drake Bowen, Junior Tuialamaka, based on PFF, and a few guys were just okay. Rubio, Young did okay. Burnham only got in a few snaps, blah, blah, blah. He didn't get a chance. But, like, looking at it overall, it's bad. I mean, it's just really bad. Jared Dawson, I mean, 58. Like, if your 5th, 6th guy is not even at 60%, you're in trouble. This is a recruiting problem. And let me be specific on what I mean by that. Boubacar is going to play in the NFL, and Bryce is going to play in the NFL, period. But they're not there to where they need to be yet. They're probably both a year away, especially since Boubacar is coming off a knee injury. I expect him to elevate his game as the year goes on. No doubt about it. Having stated that, they don't have a defensive tackle that's a good pass rusher right now. And that's a little concerning to me, because Jared Dawson, that's the one thing he could definitely do last year, was rush the passer when he was at Louisville, and he's went down. That's a problem. He hasn't adjusted to the coaching, or the coaching hasn't adjusted to him. Maybe it's a combination of both, but that's not working. He's just okay. They don't have anybody on the inside that can beat guys consistently one-on-one, not even close. That is a recruiting problem. And I know Notre Dame knows this. And for those that are curious, I've said this before on this pod, I'll say it again. Elite, not good, elite defensive tackles out of high school, you're paying 7 figures a year, even when they're sitting and waiting to learn. There is no ifs, there are no ands, there are no buts. 7 figures. Notre Dame does not want to do that. Chicken and the egg. This is a long time developing situation. Notre Dame's got a couple pretty good defensive tackles in this current class, but I wouldn't consider them elite. They're going to have to spend, and I mean overspend, in the defensive tackle category in the offseason, probably 2 to 3 times what a player's worth if they want to compete for a title next year. They're not winning it this year, obviously. They got to figure out interior D-line, because these pass rush numbers, yeah, that's not going to get it, brother. That's not even in the stratosphere where you need to be. It's just talent. Defensive tackle is about dudes. More than any other position in sports, just raw, unadulterated. When I was born, I was going to be this size, this strength, this attitude, all of those, no combination, all 3, size, strength, attitude, all have to meet a certain level. And then you can work on some of your athleticism, but there's a lot of God-given ability with that too. Flexibility and explosiveness you get better at. But there's only so many of them. And they're about 5 or 6 a year in college football that are worth a darn. Dominic McKinley at LSU, like, he's just a freight train. Certain guys like that makes a difference. Notre Dame doesn't even have one on the roster right now, in my opinion. I don't think so. They've got one that I think is close. They got a certain freshman out of Chicago, Simeon, that I'm very excited about, but he's not quite there in terms of size yet to be that guy on 1st and 10. Next year, he needs to be that guy. I'm not going to give any freshman any concern about being the guy because that's not fair. But outside of him, like, do they have that? That is a major concern for me with this program. Now, as I talk about the defense, that doesn't mean there isn't some positives with the offense. Real quick before I throw up his stats and then the O-line, CJ Carr, I just want to give my general thoughts and then I'll put up his numbers. He does a incredible job. I don't know if this is because of the family he's from, innate ability, both coaching, competitiveness. The little bit that I had a chance to speak with CJ a couple of years ago when he was at a 7-on-7 tournament, just kind of watching him and then seeing him earlier in the year at a different tournament. I didn't even speak to him then. He loves it in terms of all the little stuff. Like, he's a guy that could probably coach at some point. So to a certain degree, like if you remember back the pass that he threw later in the game to Fields in between the safety in the corner, super dangerous pass, but he put it to a 6'4", 220-plus pound receiver where he could and where he needed to. Okay. But outside of that throw, there were still several others. It's a timing deal. And it's almost like he makes those better than the easy ones. The Jeremiah Love touchdown, it wasn't a good pass. He overthrew it. Love bailed him out. That was a bad throw. It's hard to outthrow Jeremiah, by the way. But anyway, Jeremiah makes the one-handed grab, scores. But some of the other throws, like, easy. The Raritan throw. That was one he did do very well. They obviously smoked A&M on that. They caught him flat-footed. He could have overthrown that one. And he threw it down the field, gave him a little bit of lead, but he didn't overthrow it. That was about as good a throw as you can make. Try to give him some momentum, but you have to make sure he catches it. Well done. And then just some of the little passes around the flat, throwing outs and stuff. I think that he's just so accurate and he's so on time. As he gains more and more experience with these guys, he's going to make more 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15 throws than anybody in college football by the end of the year. It's above the shoulder. I don't know how else to say it, but his timing is probably the best thing for CJ now. Before the season, I would have said easily it's the deep ball. It's the timing. It's the stuff that, like, usually it takes to the end of your senior year before you even start to get it. He's getting it early as a redshirt freshman. This is a guy that you can win the Heisman on your roster. Now, can they play defense and can they block for him the way they need? I don't know. But there's no reason to think that CJ Carr is not just what we thought long-term, but he's already progressing at a level that I did not anticipate. So good for him. Now let's talk a little bit about CJ's stats. This is a kid, man, that he is really, really, really good in terms of coming up with the big play and figuring it out. Here are the passing direction and all that stuff. And then down at the bottom, it's some of the basic stuff for CJ. When he's kept clean, I mean, he's easily, and he should be, 10.2 yards per attempt. When he's not blitzed, 10.1. When he is blitzed, 7.7. So like most guys, when he gets somebody in his face, he's not great. The only thing looking at his numbers, like, it's kind of surprising. Like he's still a little under 50% when blitzed. That's got to go up. Part of that isn't CJ though. It's what I'm going to show in a minute. They're still not good enough in pass pro. They've improved, but they're still nowhere near where they need to be. As far as beating guys deep, throwing the ball, he's got a good enough arm, everything like that. I'm happy with it. But looking at the numbers overall, the only thing is when he gets somebody close to him, he's not that great. But you also have to remember when guys are blitzed, sometimes they throw it away. How much is that on CJ and how many of those are really passes that were obtainable? That's a little bit iffy. So now I want to flip it over to something else. And this is the not so fun one. I'm still not sold on Notre Dame and the offensive line by any stretch of the imagination. And like, look, there's no way around it. Their blocking grades, they got some problems up front. Let's just go over it. We'll go right tackle, left tackle, et cetera, just down the list. Wagner, overall grade, 60.9. Pass protection, 65. Run block, 57. A&M, by the way, was not quite as good up front as I thought, especially on the edges. They miss some of those guys. They really, really do. Knapp, as I've said many times, his grade overall was 46.8. He's not an offensive tackle. They're asking him to do something he's not ready for at the very least, and I still think he would be better served inside. They just need him at offensive tackle. They don't think somebody else can play there. Personally, I'm surprised Gerby Lambert and him aren't switching, but whatever. That's where they got him. Billy Schrauth played pretty decent. Overall, 72.1, run blocking 69.1, and pass protection was actually really good per PFF, 88. That's pretty good. Gerby Lambert, second career start. He was much better in pass pro this time, but he still has a long way to go with run blocking, 56.8. That's just a guy, eventually he's going to figure it out. The surprise based on PFF, Ashton Craig at 50.5. I didn't think he was this bad. I mean, A&M got some interior pressure. There were some mix-ups. How many were on him? How many were on Gerby or on Billy? I would imagine Gerby's the most likely among those, but they got Ashton pretty low. It is what it is, but too many of the guys in pass pro struggle in moments where there's communication issues. That's my biggest concern. And again, A&M was not that great. They just weren't up front. So do I think that's going to get fixed? I don't know. I really don't know. But anyway, I'll wrap this up with the following. I'll summarize it. I don't expect Freeman to give you the pound of flesh that you would like. Many would like, myself probably included here. But I expect him to make some changes privately. And I also expect him to look around, again, privately. That's just how coaching works. Fair or not, whether you agree or not, that's how it works. As for the defense, they better simplify one way, shape, or form or another. And again, this is Freeman's own words from Monday's press conference. Are we asking them to do too much? There were a couple other comments involved, but I take that as I know there's paralysis by analysis. And especially the younger guys, if the older players aren't getting it, do you really think Zachary is getting it? Do you really think Dallas Golden is getting it? And Christian Gray is banged up. I don't see a path to this getting better quickly regardless, but the best path is to conservatively here, reducing what they're asking them to do by about 50%, just execute something at a very high level, wrap up and tackle. That way you can rotate more with your DBs and somehow, some way, come hell, come high water, if I'm right about Christian Gray's shoulder, he's got to play way less, if at all, against Purdue. And for those of you that gamble and whatnot, I urge you the following to note. Do not in any way, shape, or form believe any part of Notre Dame's injury report. Zero. Especially as it relates to a corner, because that's, other than quarterback, that's the spot that's most important for head coach of the team. You can isolate a corner, go after him and after him and after him. If Purdue knows Gray's out all week, what are they going to do? They're going to prepare for it. If they knew right now 100% Christian Gray was not going to play, Notre Dame's not going to admit it. Don't pay attention to that stuff. Just wait for the game, watch the game. Don't bet on this one, because Gray could come in or out of the game at any point. If you're a really avid gambler, good luck to you, because you are guessing. It is obvious he is banged up. So with that, I appreciate you all stopping in. I'll be talking more Irish after this week with hopefully better information on my next pod next Sunday, Monday, depending on how it goes. I'll have a prediction with some more information based on some film and some other things later this week. Probably put it up on Friday, but right now I'm not going to post as much because everybody wants to see the pound of flesh. Nobody else wants to see anything. I get it. I'm not going to waste your time or mine. I'm just going to wait to see what Freeman does. After Purdue, we might ramp it up a little bit. There's not a lot of recruiting news, etc. Although, like Joshua Dobson, an elite 2027 DB, had a great visit this back week, and etc. Let's just see how it goes for Notre Dame in regards to this weekend. I think that's the best thing to do. So everybody have a good one. We will see you again soon on the Irish Recruiting Podcast.